Hi everyone. Welcome to this Innovation Enterprise webinar in association with Altius. We're still waiting for a few people to sign on, but I think we'll get started. I'm delighted to introduce you to Craig Schiff, who is President and CEO of BPM Partners, and to Noel Phillips, who is CEO at Altius. Today they'll both be presenting the Leveraging Excel for Enterprise-Grade Performance Management webinar. There'll be time for a Q&A session at the end, so please feel free to post your questions at any time in the Q&A box located at the right-hand side of your screen. The recording of this webinar will be available in 3 working days. Before I hand over to Craig, we just want to find out a little bit more about you with a few multiple choice polls. So the first question is, are you using Excel for performance management activities? I'll leave that up and go to the second question, which is, what is your main concern when using spreadsheets for performance management activities? And then lastly, have you implemented a performance management solution or software but are still using spreadsheets to perform critical business processes? Great, I'll leave those questions up in case anyone else hasn't submitted their answers yet. But next we'll have a brief introduction to our first speaker, Craig. So currently Craig is President and CEO of BPM Partners, but prior to this he was a founding member of Hyperion, which is now a part of Oracle, and co-founder of Outlook Soft, which is now a part of SAP. Craig contributes to several publications, including the BI Network, CFO Magazine, and Tech Target. So over to you, Craig.
Thank you very much, Deanna. So as we talk about performance management here, sometimes called business performance management, let's make sure we're all on the same page as to what it involves. The main areas that performance management addresses include budgeting and planning and forecasting. And on this slide, you'll see the bullets below identify the problems people are trying to solve when they look for a new performance management solution. But there are other areas that are under the same banner, such as financial consolidation, financial reporting, governance, risk, and compliance, as well as profit optimization and operational analytics to get a more holistic view of what's going on in the business. And then lastly, the performance dashboard, where you have key performance indicators. So those are the key areas of performance management. The way it looks from a technology framework is that you have your transactional systems primarily as your source systems, and there's some other data types down there such as spreadsheets or office documents, other unstructured data along with the transactional data. And all of that comes together in a performance management data mart where they combine actual and budget information, plan information in the same place. And you put that all together by laying out your strategy, putting together a plan to support that strategy, monitoring your actual performance against that plan, and taking corrective action. The way you interact with this system varies by the solution you've selected. It may be through a browser, it may be through a spreadsheet, or it may be through a custom interface of some kind, which is very relevant, obviously, to the topic at hand. So let's take a look very briefly at some predictions we made going into this year for performance management. These systems have been evolving over the years and have become very capable, very robust functionality, but along with that has come complexity. So we see a new focus from the end user organizations that we work with when we help them find a solution, that they're really focused on ease of use. You could have all the functionality in the world, but if it's difficult to get to, people aren't going to get the full advantage from it, and some people aren't going to use it as often as they should. So ease of use is important, and familiarity of spreadsheets certainly plays into that and provides some of that ease of use. Data visualization and analytics, we saw some of this in the polls before, but the ability to understand this data using analytic tools as well as graphs and charts is becoming more and more important, and we see that continuing into 2015. Collaboration also showed up in the poll, very important as you're creating your budget, being able to sync up with other departments and make sure what you're doing makes sense, as well as to analyze and understand the resulting performance. And a key trend that plays into the topic today is the embrace of the Microsoft Office suite. What we've seen for many years is vendors have confused the fact that end users are trying to get away from spreadsheet-based systems, meaning that they're moving away from spreadsheets entirely. That's not the case. It's using spreadsheets alone as a system that people realize doesn't work, but they still use spreadsheets, and we'll look at some data here that shows what that looks like. So really, you can't ignore the Office documents and spreadsheets that people have. You need to find a way to integrate that and leverage it in your performance management system. So here's where the dilemma comes from. Spreadsheets are very capable. As a personal tool, they're wonderful. A lot of us use them regularly, daily, and are very comfortable and familiar with all the capabilities. Particularly in the finance department, you find a lot of that expertise. End users can work with spreadsheets with little IT involvement. They've been doing this for years, so there are existing models that they've built that are fairly complex, and they're relatively inexpensive, so just about everyone in the company can have access to a spreadsheet. However, when people try to take these standalone spreadsheets and make them into a system for budgeting, as an example, the security is fairly lacking. There's no real controls on the data or calculation. Sure, you could lock some things down, but people could make local changes to the spreadsheet after they've shipped it off to you for consolidation and reporting, which leads to the data integrity problem that showed up in our poll as a top issue that people have as a concern. Their data is stored locally on their sheet, which may be different than the version that you have that they sent, last week. So you end up with many versions of the truth. Workflow is virtually non-existent. Walking through the process and submitting and getting approval and only looking at reviewed and approved versions. Auditability is fairly complex, especially when it's a large spreadsheet or a group of linked spreadsheets. And then getting the actuals data in there to track performance against the budget, again, a very labor-intensive, tedious task. This data is from our annual BPM Pulse survey. This is from the 2014 survey, which had about 250 respondents around the world. Most respondents were in finance, but there was also a sampling of IT and other business unit respondents. We asked them, what are they using for budgeting currently? And the majority, 43%, are using an on-premise performance management application, 20% are using a cloud-based application, and 19% are still using spreadsheets as their primary budgeting tool. For those that have moved to a performance management application, we asked them, do spreadsheets still supplement this solution? And the answer is 80% of them say yes. So what you see here is people are either using spreadsheets as the system, which has all sorts of issues as we discussed, or they've moved to a real enterprise-grade performance management solution, but the spreadsheets didn't go away. This slide is very telling, and this really paints the picture and tells the whole story of our topic for today. On the left, we have people that use spreadsheets primarily. So these are the standalone spreadsheets trying to force fit it into a system. On the right, we have people who are using packaged applications, performance management applications, and as we saw in 80% of the cases, supplemented by spreadsheets. The levels of satisfaction differ dramatically, as you would expect. The bulk of the spreadsheet-only users are fairly dissatisfied. The bulk of the application users who are using spreadsheets in conjunction with those applications are very happy. And that pretty much sums up, the issues we're discussing here. Spreadsheets alone don't result in a great system. However, they're very useful when supplementing a real robust performance management solution. We asked people why they were dissatisfied, and again, remember the bulk of the people dissatisfied here are the spreadsheet-only users, and it takes too long, it's too much work, It's difficult to change. I can't really set up the organization the way I need it to. There's virtually no collaboration. Difficult to audit if you have large, complex calculations that may be cross worksheets. So these are the issues that people have with spreadsheet-only systems. But what would they like? What do they look for in an ideal budgeting and planning solution? A solution that's scalable. And again, if you're a large organization, spreadsheets are not very scalable. They look for finance ownership. That's true of spreadsheets, but it's also true of most systems out there. They want to enable continuous forecasting, driver-based planning, and scenario modeling. And by the way, on this particular graph, they were asked to rate the importance on a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the most important. So these are the ones that are around 4, a little bit more, a little bit less. They want to integrate financial and operational data, and they want to have support for line item detail. All of this is fairly difficult to accomplish in spreadsheets by themselves. Let's take a brief look at reporting, another major area of performance management, financial reporting specifically. Today in our survey, 34% have an on-premise solution for this, 16% have a cloud-based performance management solution. There are 19% here that are using specialized BI tools to do this, report and query tools, but you still have 15% who are using spreadsheets primarily. And what do people look for in a reporting solution? The ability to drill into detail, difficult to set up in a spreadsheet. Drill into the account detail if I'm looking at a summary account, look into the entity detail if I'm dealing with a consolidated entity. I want to see the other entities in the hierarchy that roll up into that one. Dynamic reports, if I change the account structure or the organizational roll up, I'd like the report to change dynamically. Not easy in a spreadsheet. Then they do care about spreadsheets. They want to be able to output to it or use it as the report designer. But they also look for presentation quality output, the ability to quickly generate an ad hoc report by choosing items from a pull-down list. You can simulate that in a spreadsheet, but again, fairly difficult and nearly impossible to keep it up to date with changing chart of accounts and organizations, and the ability to pull data from multiple databases. So these are the things people are trying to do in a performance management system with or without spreadsheets. So what's the answer here? Spreadsheets add value and performance management systems add value. What do you need to do to get the best of both worlds? Do you purchase a performance management system and throw away these spreadsheets? Well, you're getting rid of all your existing models, reports, templates that you've built over the years, and the existing knowledge and expertise, and again, particularly that exists in the finance department. So the answer is we want to leverage Excel in conjunction with a true performance management system. First thing we need to think about is how are we going to use the spreadsheets in performance management system. Are we going to use it for input templates? Probably. Are we going to use it for complex models? So either existing models or new models we're going to create that are fairly complex and may be difficult to set up in a new system. Are we going to put data in there for offline analysis so the CFO can sit at his desk in Excel where he's most comfortable and analyze the data that exists in the system, in addition to whatever tools the system itself provides? Are we going to use it to load data? In some companies, there's data sitting in spreadsheets that doesn't exist anywhere. It's not in the transactional systems. It's not in the other specialized sales systems. It's extra data the organization has. It's important, only sits in a spreadsheet. Or a spreadsheet may be a way to transfer data from another system that may be old or custom that's difficult to access any other way. And we want to use it to produce formatted reports. And again, that comes from comfort. Most of these systems have very good report writers, but if you're more comfortable laying out a report in Excel, then maybe that's how people want to continue to do it. So you need to think about these things as you look at a system. Do you want to use it for some simple charting and create pseudo dashboards? Again, many systems provide built-in dashboards and graphical capabilities, but if you're comfortable with it in a spreadsheet, maybe that's what you want to do. These are things to think about as you look for a new system. In particular, you want to see a system that broadly integrates spreadsheets and doesn't have it just off to the side for retrieval and extraction of information. Many performance management systems work with spreadsheets. They have to. They're so ubiquitous out there. But you're looking in this case for a spreadsheet that plays a major role in the system. As a matter of fact, ideally, you would like to be the primary interface. If you're very comfortable in spreadsheets and want to wed the power of spreadsheets to the power of performance management system, you want it fully integrated. And you want it to be more than a simple add-in, sometimes, negatively referred to as Excel on steroids. You want something that really uses Excel, but is a full-blown system in addition to Excel. You want it to support all areas of performance management on your roadmap. You may be dealing with budgeting today. Tomorrow you may be dealing with financial reporting. A year from now, financial consolidation, profitability analysis, maybe a performance dashboard. You want a solution that's going to cover all of those areas. Again, leveraging Excel as part of that solution. You want pricing that enables wide-scale deployment. The spreadsheet is throughout your organization. Part of it is because of the way it's licensed and priced. You want to make sure your new performance management solution can reach those same users. And of course, you want functionality that goes beyond a standalone spreadsheet system. And let's take a look at what that means. So you have your spreadsheet. How do you turn it into a system? Well, the first thing that it's lacking by itself that you need to add is a centralized data repository, that one version of the truth. So no matter what they do locally, when they post the data, it's all sitting in one consistent database, and that's the reliable source of data, the piece that has data integrity that everyone can rely on. You need support for multiple dimensions. I mean, you have a time dimension, you have an account dimension, you have an organizational dimension, but you may have other dimensions beyond that, a product roll-up, a regional roll-up, and many other ways you slice the data. You need a system that can support those multiple dimensions and the ability to analyze along any dimensional path or combination of paths. You need support for business rules and calculations outside of the spreadsheet. You want them to be locked down and controlled. So you need a central system where the main calculations that corporate cares about exist. People could do what they want in the spreadsheet. They could supplement it with their own local calculations that are specific to their needs, but you don't want them to have the ability to change or not use the corporate required calculations. So you need a central store of those rules. You want collaboration. The ability to, as you're submitting data, maybe attach supporting documents explaining why you're asking for a certain amount in the budget, a PowerPoint that explains a new plant you're opening. Additionally, as you're looking at the performance data, you may want the ability to comment on particular results so everyone who subsequently looks at that data will understand why the performance is where it is. You need workflow. As people enter data into the system, normally they need to submit it to a manager for review, and once that manager reviews it, it's locked. The submitter can no longer change it, and it moves up the stream. And again, you all know you're looking at the latest consistent source of data. So workflow is an important element. You want built-in reporting and analytics. Of course, you can use the spreadsheet to do that, but you really want a powerful reporting and analytics engine that's dynamic, that will change as the organization chart or account structure changes, that has built-in analytics capabilities and data visualization, really more powerful than you can get in any spreadsheet. You need the ability to distribute reports and publish them. So once a report is done and you want everyone to view it, you want to make sure there's an easy way to make it available to people as opposed to emailing a spreadsheet around, which is what many people do today. So you want to have a place where you can pull published reports. People can run their own ad hoc reports as needed. So you need a report distribution and publishing mechanism. You need integration with other systems. As we saw earlier, the source data for the actuals is sitting in transactional systems, so we need to pull data out of those systems, and in some cases we may need to feed data back. And all of this, key element here, all of this needs to be tied to very tight security, ideally role-based security, that people have access to just the information they're supposed to be able to see or update, the people that are able to change the rules or the structure, the account list, or the organizational hierarchy. All of that has to be defined and controlled by strong security. All of these additional pieces here are generally lacking when you're just using standalone spreadsheets. The end result of this is an enterprise-grade performance management system that leverages Excel, best of both worlds. The benefit of doing this is you leverage your existing investments, so all the work you've done in Excel, all of those models, all the knowledge you have can be brought into the new system. It reduces the learning curve. Many of you people already have familiarity with that interface, so it's an easy move. End user self-sufficiency, again, once the system's up and running, if the bulk of the work is done in that interface, even though there's a powerful system behind it, People will be able to do that with minimal assistance from IT or other parts of the company. You get less pushback. Every time you bring in a new system, if there's something new to learn, there's certainly many people who are not excited about that. And what they do is generally not use the system to the extent they really should to get full value from it. You get a quicker implementation because you leverage many of the things that exist. And again, you're using that spreadsheet interface as a way to load some of the data, maybe a chart of accounts or organizational structure already sitting in spreadsheets. You could load that into the new system fairly quickly and easily. And an important point that's often missed is the vendor doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. No matter how large a vendor is, they have a finite set of resources in product development, and you would want them focused on new value-added capabilities that require their domain expertise. They shouldn't have to spend a ton of resources on creating a spreadsheet-like interface when you can just use a real spreadsheet and get all the additional pluses that come along with that. If you'd like to learn more about performance management or how to select a solution, feel free to visit our site or drop me a line. And at this point, I'd like to turn this over to Noel.
Thank you, Craig. My name is Noel Phillips, and I'm the CEO of Altius Consulting. We're based in Houston, Texas, and I'd definitely like to thank Craig for his the words he's just spoken around the challenges of performance management and the benefits that can be had by a real deep integration of spreadsheets into the planning process. Following on from what Craig said, you can see here this first little diagram of 8 people emailing files around between each other. We've all seen this in our own organizations and in other organizations, the number of emails you receive from people with attachments with an old version of a spreadsheet or an update to an existing spreadsheet using an older format, and then inevitably someone is sat in the middle trying to make sense of all of the attachments that are flying around the organization, and they end up spending most of their time just managing Excel as opposed to actually adding value to the process that Excel is supposed to be supporting. The next step that most people take, and it's a sensible one, is to create a single shared folder for all of those spreadsheets. So now everyone can, in principle, look at a common version of a spreadsheet, but you still run into collaboration issues, you still run into issues regarding concurrent use, you still run into issues regarding consolidation and aggregation, and you still have all of the issues regarding security and workflow. So as Craig said, the inevitable next step is to go to a platform-driven process. We have a centralized database that correctly models the business process that we're trying to support. All of the data is securely held in a data center. It is partitioned and aligned with how we model the business in terms of our organizational structure, in terms of our accounting structure, and any of those dimensions that we need to gain insight into this business process. And it also allows us to layer on a workflow engine to control the sequencing of events, to control the approvals and the rejections of data, to make sure that we're all looking at a common view, and to provide the auditing of all the actions that have been performed against the system. So you can see here, with regard to the flex planning technology that we have here at Altius, the flow of data through the platform. The data sources, although they will most often be directly from users using Excel to generate and publish that data, there are often other sources of data coming from other transactional systems, whether it be from an operational system or from an accounting platform providing actuals. We work on top of the Microsoft SQL Server stack, which is an incredibly cost-effective enterprise-grade database platform, and using the integration services that comes with SQL Server, all of those third-party data sources get securely rolled into a centralized data warehouse or data mart, depending on the size and scope of the system. We then use SQL Server analysis services to provide that multi-dimensional slice and dice platform. And what this means is that you're no longer constrained to a limited number of reporting options. Connectivity to SQL Server is found in almost every reporting platform available, whether it's something built in conjunction with us or whether you have existing reporting investment, then you can pull the data out of this system and report on it in your tool of choice. One important piece that we add to this puzzle is if you're building something from scratch and are building a model to fit your existing business process, we also provide the tooling to take ownership of that model on an ongoing basis. A tool called MDM Studio we have will allow you to manage your organizational structure, your account structure, in fact, any of the dimensions that you deem are necessary to support the process. You'll have full control over those to modify them on an ongoing basis, and at the same time keeping everyone synchronized with those changes. But what I'm going to do now is jump into a quick demonstration. As we saw from Craig's slides, there's a large number of features and requirements that you might have out of one of these systems. What I'm going to focus on today is using Excel as the vehicle for getting data into the system, see some of the workflow and the audit trail that's created by using the system, and then how easy it is to quickly get data back out. Okay, so I'm jumping onto a demo machine here, and before we get too far into Flex itself, I'm just going to pull up a very simple Excel-based report here. And what I'm trying to show here is the fact that we're using just an off-the-shelf Excel. This is Excel 2013 to connect to that SQL Server multi-dimensional database. I'm using Excel here because it's very quick and easy. But the point to be made is that you can connect almost any reporting system to this model. And because this data is securely stored in the data center, I have all the granularity I need to slice and dice data. You can see here by drilling into one dimension, my chart's changing, and this is just streaming all this data from the data warehouse, as opposed to it being sat in local storage on my machine. The model we're going to look at today is a fictitious upstream oil and gas company who is responsible for running drilling projects that have capital expenditure, they have operational expenditure, and what I'm trying to model here is a budget and a forecast for that activity. The chart I'm looking at here right now is very simply is showing me my total budgeted capital expenditure and my total budgeted operational expenditure over a 5-year period. Just by looking at the chart here, I can see that it doesn't look quite right. If I look at 2014 and 2015, I can see there's a huge amount of operational spend that doesn't look like it's possibly correct. So what I'm going to do is use Flex to interrogate that data, possibly correct that data, and see those results come out of the other end. On the second tab here, I have a slightly different chart that's showing the same data, but what I've chosen to do is to split the bars by the organizational structure in this company. So looking at the operational expenditure, I can see that it's all, in 2014, it's all down to this Rudolph organizational unit. And in 2015, the vast majority of it is to this Maverick organizational unit. So I'm a bit suspicious that something's not been entered correctly here. So what I'm going to go and do is use Flex to get hold of the spreadsheets that were used to submit this data, see what's going on, and maybe make some corrections. Although Excel is the primary vehicle for getting data in and out of the system, in order to get hold of the spreadsheets that are required to enter that data, we do have a web portal where users can go to download copies of the Excel documents they need. It's where they can go to check on the workflow status, understand where data is in the process. And it's where administrators can go to control the process as well. Just wait for this to start up. So I come here to the home page of the Flex demo system we have here. First thing you'll notice is that we do have a dashboard on the front page. In this case, it's showing two really distinct styles of information. I'm seeing some information that's driven directly from the user input, and I'm also seeing some more general information about the process I'm trying to control in terms of any submission deadlines or any status of the workflow. All of the data in this dashboard can be exposed to other reporting tools, and equally this dashboard can consume data from other systems if that's what you wanted to do. And how this dashboard might be used will depend on an organization's existing investment in terms of any company-wide portals or dashboarding solutions. So I'm going to go ahead and get hold of the data entry vehicles for those two organizations we looked at. I'm not going to spend too long on here, but what I will say is you can see this tree here is representing the organizational structure we set up here. Everything in this tree, and in fact everything in the entire system, is security controlled, such that I can only see entities and make changes to entities that I have been explicitly given access to by an administrator. I'm going to go ahead and choose Rudolph and Maverick. And I'm going to download the file. And you see down the bottom, hopefully here, it's popped up and it's offering me the opportunity to save a file. It's given me a timestamped name, but what I'm going to do is give it a slightly more understandable name. Here, and I'm going to save that to my desktop. And now I'm just going to open the file, and it will it will open up in Excel. And a couple of things are going to happen here. Excel's going to open. We have the Flex add-in installed in Excel, so it would immediately notice that this Excel file is a Flex flavored template, and it's going to start making some customizations to the workbook based on the selections I made while I was at the web portal. So in just a couple of seconds, it's done a few things. First of all, it's given me a tab for each of the entities I chose. How this workbook behaves is completely configurable, whether it's the replication of tabs if I'm selecting multiple entities, or maybe it's the way that the account structure expands and contracts based on what I have access to. And then when the structure itself has been set, because I'm opening this for the first time, it will go ahead and pull the current state of this data from that centralized database. At this point, I can effectively work offline if I choose to. This is a regular Excel file. I can take it away with me. I can take it offline. I can be on a plane or a train and make changes to this. And then when I reconnect to the corporate network, I can push those changes back to the centralized database. So as suspected, the operational spend here for Rudolph, we can see it's all been just lumped into 2014. I'm fairly sure that's a mistake. So I'm going to go ahead and correct this because I have the security privileges to do so. So simply by updating these cells, I've spread that operational spend over a few more years. I'm getting it to add up to the same total because I'm assuming that the total is correct. It was just entered into the wrong years. So that's Rudolph. And then on this Maverick one, I can see I've got a similar problem. What I'm going to do here is slightly different. Because this is a full-blown Excel environment, as Craig said, we're not trying to reinvent Excel in a separate application. I have all of the functionality that Excel provides, and obviously the most common of which is to use formulas. So what I'm going to do is update these numbers like this, and then I'm actually going to use just a simple formula to have these progress by 10%. Like that. And this is obviously a very simplistic example, but you can imagine if you're using formulas or models to set this data, this becomes quite easy to drag these things around. We also support the ability to audit those formulas. If I've chosen to use a formula to derive my numbers, we can choose to capture that information so that people who review these files at a later date or review the data can understand what mechanism you used to arrive at that data. We also support the capture and reporting of text values. So we have a box at the top where you can enter formatted text that can all be saved. And finally, we do support the ability to capture cell comments. So you can, as you're probably aware, insert a comment into a cell here to explain what's going on. And we support the capture and reporting of that information as well. So once I've made these changes, I can save the file to my desktop and keep working on it for as long as I choose. But when I'm ready to submit this back to the central system, I have the Flex menu up here, and I'm going to choose this Save Data option here. I'm going to save all the sheets. So this, in very short order, has submitted those back to the database, and in doing so, we'll have made all of the necessary security checks, both in terms of my permission to make the changes I just made, as well as where we are in the workflow process, whether the changes I've made are suitable. Because I'm logged into the web portal, I've chosen to have some notifications when data has been submitted, so you can see I've got a little pop-up in the corner telling me that data has been processed by the system. If I go to the Workflow tab, what I want to do is to understand how the actions I've just taken have impacted the workflow. So immediately here, I have a table of the entities in my organization that are being tracked right now. Maverick being one of the ones we just updated. And you can see here I have a full audit trail of the activity that's gone on around this reporting entity, including the fact that I just submitted data to it right now. And I also have the ability, because of the roles I have in the system, to go ahead and approve or reject any of these. And the workflow process that these follow is completely customizable. It can be as simple as just a one-step approval versus an incredibly elaborate multi-step parallel path approval, depending on the complexity of the business process. So now that I see that the data has been submitted, I want to go back and make sure that this has had the effect that I was hoping for. So I'm back in my simple Excel report here, and just using the built-in tools, I should be able to refresh the data coming into this chart. Flip. Oh. Close this. Just hit refresh all, and you can see immediately the impact of the data loads I just made. The operational expenditure has been appropriately spread over the next few years. The data in my table is updated, and I can go ahead and approve that submission now and let the process continue. So if we could move back to the slides, please, Deanna. Can we move to the next slide, please, Diana?
Hi, Noel. We have actually moved over onto the slides. I think you're still sharing your screen at the moment, but you can move along the slides now.
Okay, thank you. So hopefully the very brief demo I just went through begins to show you what can be done when you couple the power and the existing investment in Excel along with a centralized data store, a centralized workflow process, robust security and role restrictions, along with a multidimensional reporting and analytics engine. So you can continue to use Excel for data entry, data retrieval. You can use all of your existing Excel models, and you can, if you choose, use it for multidimensional reporting and analytics. All the while, Flex is continually providing data consolidation, the collaboration, notifications, all of the security and controls, and a centralized place to deliver reporting and analytics, as well as to provide a data platform to other reporting platforms that you may have in the organization. So you can see here, just in summary, that it's a solution for business users. Although any enterprise-wide BPM platform will require the assistance of IT, the idea is that the process can be designed and maintained by business users for business users using the investments they've already made, with a centralized database, highly automated security, the ability to administer both the data, the users, and the rules yourself, all on a platform that's massively scalable and widely accessible. You can achieve the desired end state of a robust planning process, all while using Excel for the tasks that Excel was designed for. We see the use of our product in finance a lot. Finance, the process of budgeting, planning, and forecasting in finance departments naturally lends itself to this approach, not least because of the large wealth of experience that finance professionals have using Excel, and also the cyclical nature and the ever-changing nature of budgeting and planning. The ability to make last-minute changes to a budget mid-cycle, the ability to change an account structure due to a last-minute memo line that may be required, all while not having to engage IT or engage a vendor to make changes to the system. Fast, accurate reporting, real-time visibility into how data is moving through the system, and all of that lets you do much more actual data analysis and adding value to a business process rather than just chasing data points day in, day out. Here are just a few examples of how the implementation of Flex has helped companies realize a truly dynamic and robust planning process. Systems such as these drive both manpower savings while also actually freeing up existing resources to do the job that they were usually hired to perform, as opposed to constantly fighting a system and a bunch of unruly spreadsheets. So thank you very much for following me through that short demo in the time we had available. It's obviously a very big topic, and I think I'll hand back to Deanna now to field any questions that any of you may have.
Great, thank you, Noel. Now's time for a Q&A session. So if anyone does have any questions, if you could just post them in the Q&A box, which is located at the right-hand side of the screen. We have had a couple of questions come in during the presentation, the first of which is, what sorts of organisations are utilising the solution at the moment?
Thanks, Deanna. So the vast majority of the people using our system are in the oil and gas industry at this point in time. And the reason for that is pretty simple. The oil and gas industry is a rapidly changing industry that has to react to very volatile market conditions, as we've seen in the recent past, and they have a big focus on effective budgeting and forecasting, especially with the regulatory requirements they have. Systems such as Flex allow them to rapidly create, update, and review budgeting and planning cycles far quicker than they can with standard packaged applications or by using spreadsheets alone.
And another question is, can this solution work with any size spreadsheet?
So we have no limit on the number of or the size of spreadsheets that we support. We work with Excel 2010 and above, which removed a lot of the inherent restrictions that Excel had in terms of the number of rows or columns you have. And so for an end user, the real restriction is basically the size of spreadsheet that their desktop can support on a reasonable basis. But we have spreadsheets with tens of thousands of cells and in some cases hundreds of tabs as well. So there are no practical limitations. The limitation is really going to be around the ability of your end user to understand what's going on in a spreadsheet of that size.
Great, thank you. And probably the last question for today will be, how do you configure validation?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Sorry, how do you configure validation?
Okay, yeah. So there's the immediate level of validation can actually be done in Excel using Excel tools. The sooner you can perform the validation of user entry after it's been entered, the more chance you have of correcting that data. So if you can present and communicate any validation errors in Excel using Excel formulas or using conditional formatting or any of those things, then we support all of those types of validation, including restricting values that can be entered into certain cells, providing drop-down options where you want to limit the number of options available to a user. And we can use all of those things to block, immediately before the data even leaves the desktop, to block data entry. So that would be the first level of validation, and that can be very effective. The second level of validation will actually happen in the back office in that centralized database using rules and processes that have been set up as part of the model. And they can either provide alerts to administrators if data is not passing certain validation checks, or it can actually block the submission altogether from the user and notify them via email or however you choose that although their data submission got past the initial checks that may have been in the workbook, that it's ultimately been rejected by the system. And the final layer of validation is really the human element. The point of having a workflow process or an approval process is such that there's human visibility into what data has been submitted, what data has changed, and obviously there can be a level of validation and control performed by actual users of the system in conjunction with the data submission.
Great, thank you. I think that's probably all the questions we have time for today. So just on behalf of Innovation Enterprise, a big thank you to Craig and to Noel for their informative presentations and for the demonstration, and to everyone who's attended today. The recording of this webinar will be available within 3 working days, and that will be sent directly to the email address that you registered with. You'll see in the notes section that there is some contact information for Altius, so if you did want to reach out with any more questions, then feel free to do so. Thanks very much.